Most people wake up from anesthesia asking for ice chips or their mothers. I woke up to a voicemail congratulating me on a real estate closing I never attended. While I was under the knife for 3 hours, my parents didn't just wait in the lobby. They used a power of attorney I had forgotten about to sell my $425,000 condo out from under me. They called it a rescue mission. I called it a robbery. Control is a currency I spent a lifetime accumulating. As a 33-year-old data analyst, my world was built on spreadsheets, calendar invites, and contingency plans. I knew exactly where every dollar of my paycheck went, precisely how many hours of sleep I needed to function, and the exact fluctuating value of the one asset that made me feel like an adult in a city that refused to grow up: my condo. It was a 2-bedroom unit on the 3rd floor of a converted brick warehouse in the quieter part of the district. I had bought it 5 years ago, scraping together the down payment with an obsessiveness that bordered on mania, supplemented by a generous gift from my grandmother that she had slipped to me with a conspiratorial wink. It was worth $425,000 now. According to the market estimates, I checked every Sunday morning with my coffee. It was mine. It was the physical manifestation of my independence, but biology does not care about independence, and it certainly does not care about spreadsheets. The surgery was necessary, not life-threatening, but structural. A correction to a hip issue that had plagued me since my varsity track days and had finally decided to graduate from a dull ache to a sharp, debilitating lightning bolt every time I stood up from my desk. The recovery time was estimated at 6 weeks, with the first week being a haze of bed rest and heavy medication. For someone like me, the prospect of being incapacitated was more terrifying than the scalpel. I spent the week leading up to the procedure organizing my life as if I were going on a mission to Mars. I automated my bills. I pre-wrote emails to my team at work. I stocked my freezer with individual portions of soup and pasta, labeled with dates and reheating instructions. I was ready to press pause on my life, trusting that when I pressed play again, everything would be exactly where I left it. My parents, naturally, offered to help. "We are just a drive away," my mother had said over the phone, her voice pitching up in that way it did when she was trying to sound helpful rather than intrusive. "Your father and I can come down. We will pick up your mail. We will water those finicky ferns you love so much. We will make sure the place does not burn down while you are in the hospital." I hesitated. Our relationship was a pendulum that swung between suffocating closeness and chilly distance. They were the kind of parents who loved loudly but conditionally. They viewed my success not as my own, but as a return on their investment. But I was going to be immobile, and the thought of hiring a stranger to check on my apartment felt unnecessary when I had family volunteering. "Fine," I had said, "but just for the mail and the plants, I have everything else covered." The night before the surgery, the air in my apartment felt heavy. I was packing my hospital bag, noise-canceling headphones, a silk eye mask, a tablet loaded with audiobooks, when the doorbell rang. My mother breezed in, bringing a gust of cold air and the scent of her overly floral perfume. My father trailed behind her, looking perpetually weary, his eyes scanning the room as if appraising the furniture. "You look pale." "Natalie," my mother said, bypassing a greeting to critique my complexion. She set a tote bag on my pristine kitchen island. "I am fasting for surgery." "Mom, I am supposed to look pale," she tutted, starting to open cupboards she had no business opening. "We just wanted to make sure you were settled. Do you have your insurance card? The physical one?" "It is in my wallet," I said, zipping up my duffel bag. "I should take a picture of it," she said, pulling out her phone. "Just in case you lose your wallet at the hospital. You know how chaotic those places get. Things go missing all the time." I sighed but pulled out the card. She snapped a photo, then another of my driver's license. "And the spare keys?" my father asked. He was standing by the door, his hands in the pockets of his windbreaker. "For the mailbox and the unit, in case we need to get in for an emergency." I pointed to the hook by the entryway. "The ones with the green tag. Please do not lose them. The fob is expensive to replace." My mother picked them up, weighing them in her hand. "We are not going to lose them, Natalie. We are your parents. We are here to protect you." Then came the request that should have triggered every alarm bell in my organized mind. My mother leaned against the counter, her expression casual, almost bored. "Where is that old folder? The red one? The one with your birth certificate and the old power of attorney forms from when you went on that backpacking trip to Europe?" I frowned. "That was 10 years ago. Why would you need that?" "Just to have it on hand," she said, waving a hand dismissively. "If there is a complication during surgery, or if they need someone to sign a consent form while you are single. Natalie, you do not have a husband to make decisions. It falls to us. Better to have the paperwork and not need it than to be stuck arguing with doctors while you are bleeding out." The imagery was manipulative, typical of her, but the logic had a sliver of truth. I was single. They were my next of kin. And I was tired, anxious, and ready to get them out of my apartment so I could stare at the ceiling and worry in peace. Top shelf of the office closet. I said, "It is a fireproof accordion file. Please just take the medical proxy form. You do not need the rest. I will find it," my father said, moving toward the hallway before I could finish the sentence. They left 20 minutes later. My mother hugged me a little too tightly, whispering that everything was going to be fine, that they would take care of everything. I locked the door behind them and felt a strange, cold prickle on the back of my neck. I brushed it off as pre-op nerves. I took a shower, scrubbing my skin with the antiseptic soap the hospital had prescribed, and went to bed, telling myself that trust was a necessary part of recovery. I was wrong. The next morning was a blur of fluorescent lights, cold stethoscopes, and the sharp sting of IV needles. The anesthesia hit me like a heavy, velvet curtain dropping over my brain. I went under counting backward from 10, and I only made it to 7. Waking up was violent. It wasn't the gentle drifting awake of a Saturday morning. It was a lurching, gasping return to consciousness. My hip throbbed with a deep, bone-grinding ache that the drugs couldn't fully mask. My mouth tasted like cotton and metal. The recovery room was loud. Beeping monitors, squeaking shoes, the low hum of conversations I couldn't parse. I drifted in and out for hours. A nurse checked my vitals. Someone offered me ice chips. I slept. I woke. I slept again. When I finally surfaced with enough clarity to remember my own name, it was late afternoon. The light in my hospital room was gray and fading. I was alone, save for the rhythmic dripping of the IV bag next to my head. My phone was on the bedside table, face down. I reached for it, my hand trembling. The movement sent a spike of pain through my hip, but the need to reconnect with the world was stronger. I flipped it over. The screen lit up. A vertical list of notifications cascading down the glass. 17 missed calls, 42 unread emails, 12 text messages. My heart hammered against my ribs. Had something happened at work? Had the server crashed? I unlocked the phone, my thumb clumsy on the scanner. I bypassed the texts and went straight to the emails. The lifeblood of my existence. The first subject line made me blink, sure that the residual drugs were hallucinating words onto the screen. Mortgage satisfaction. Loan 89002214. Paid in full. I stared at it. I opened the email. It was a generic automated notification from my bank. Dear Natalie Russell, we are pleased to confirm that your mortgage on the property located at 440 West Sycamore Street has been paid in full. A lien release will be filed with the county clerk within 30 days. I laughed. A dry, rasping sound. It was a glitch, a banking error. I owed $280,000 on that condo, unless a rich uncle I didn't know about had died and left me a fortune in the last 6 hours. My mortgage was very much not paid in full. I swiped to the next notification. Gmail security alert. New forwarding rule created. This one chilled me. I clicked it. A new rule has been added to your account. Forward all incoming mail containing keywords. DocuSign. Notary. Closing. And title. To archived_folder and mark as read. I didn't set that up. My fingers were cold. I navigated to my voicemail. There was a message from a number I didn't recognize. Time-stamped at 11:30 in the morning, right when I was in the operating room. I held the phone to my ear. Hi, Natalie. This is Brenda from Premier Title. Just wanted to leave a quick congratulations on a smooth closing this morning. I know you could not be there in person, but your parents were wonderful to work with. We have wired the net proceeds as instructed. Enjoy your recovery. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the plastic tray table. Closing, net proceeds, parents, the words floated in the air, disconnected and terrifying. My door opened, and a woman in a navy blue blazer walked in, holding a clipboard. She smiled, a practiced, tight expression. Ms. Russell? I am Sarah from Patient Billing. Good to see you awake. I stared at her, my mouth opening and closing. I needed to ask her to leave. I needed to call the police. I needed to wake up from this nightmare. I just wanted to pop in because we had a call earlier today regarding your billing address. Sarah said, checking a box on her form. Your father called this morning. He wanted to confirm that any legal mail or billing statements regarding the surgery should be sent to a P.O. box in Springfield, not your home address. He said you were in the process of moving? The room tilted. I am not moving, I whispered. My voice was a croak. Oh, she said, her pen hovering. Well, he was quite specific. He provided the box number and everything. He said since the condo was sold, you would not be receiving mail there anymore. I felt the bile rise in my throat. I grabbed the plastic basin from the bedside rail and dry heaved, my empty stomach contracting painfully. Sarah stepped back, alarmed. I will get a nurse. No, I gasped, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. No nurse. My phone. I need my phone. She looked at me with pity, assuming I was delirious from the pain medication. I will come back later. Ms. Russell. As soon as the door clicked shut, I grabbed the phone again. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. I needed proof. The bank email could be phishing. The voicemail could be a wrong number. The billing lady could be mistaken. I opened the browser and navigated to my condo association's resident portal. I knew my password by heart, a complex string of 18 characters that I changed every 90 days. Login failed. I stared at the screen. I tried again. Login failed. I hit the forgot password link. A security code was sent to my email. I switched apps, grabbed the code, reset the password, and logged in. The dashboard loaded. Usually, it showed my unit number, my balance, and upcoming maintenance notices. Instead, a banner across the top read, Unit 304, Ownership Status, Pending Update. I clicked on the Service Requests tab. There was a new ticket opened at 8:15 in the morning. Request type, fob transfer. Description: please deactivate existing fobs for Natalie Russell. Issue new fobs to new owner. Submitted. Natalie Russell. Contact number 555-0199. That was not my number. That was my father's cell phone number. The reality of it hit me like a physical blow to the chest. They had done it. They had actually done it, while I was unconscious, sliced open on a sterile table. My parents had sold my home. I dialed my mother. It rang once, twice. Natalie! Her voice was bright. Too loud. You are awake. Oh, thank God. We were so worried. The doctor said the surgery went well, but you were taking a long time to come out of the anesthesia. How are you feeling? Mom, I said. The single word felt heavy, like a stone in my mouth. You sound groggy. Sweetie, do not try to talk too much. Just rest. We are just finishing up some errands and then we might come by tomorrow if the hospital allows visitors. Why did the bank email me saying my mortgage is paid off? The line went silent. Not the silence of a dropped call, but the thick, suffocating silence of someone holding their breath. Natalie, my mother said, her tone shifting. The brightness vanished, replaced by a smooth, terrifying calmness. You are on a lot of medication right now. You are confused. I am not confused. Mom, I have an email from the bank. I have a voicemail from a realtor named Brenda. I have a notification from the HOA that my fobs are being deactivated. Did you sell my condo? "We are handling something for you," she said. "What does that mean?" I shouted. My voice cracked. The pain in my hip flared, searing and hot. "What does handling something mean? Did you sell my apartment?" "Natalie, lower your voice. You are going to hurt yourself." "Did you sell it?" "We had to make a decision," she said, and I could hear the steel in her voice now. "An executive decision. There were financial complications, family debts that were going to impact you eventually. We did it to protect you, to keep the family afloat." "You sold my home to pay your debts?" "We sold a home. Natalie, it is just bricks and drywall. You can stay with us while you recover. It is better this way. You should not be alone in the city anyway. It is not safe." I was gasping for air. Panic was setting in. A cold, creeping paralysis. "You had no right. I never signed anything. You signed the power of attorney," she said. 10 years ago. It is still valid. We checked. That was for emergencies. This is not an emergency. It was an emergency for us," she snapped. Then, instantly, she pivoted. "Listen to yourself. You are hysterical. Do you want to tear your stitches? Do you want to end up back in the ER for another surgery because you could not calm down?" "Stop it," I sobbed. "We will explain everything when you are lucid. Right now, you are being irrational. I am going to hang up so you can sleep. We love you. Natalie. This is for your own good." She disconnected. I stared at the phone, the screen going black. I felt small. I felt 5 years old. Being scolded for spilling juice on the carpet. Except the juice was my entire life, and the carpet was the only place I had ever felt safe. I started to shake, violent, uncontrollable tremors that rattled the bed frame. "Ms. Russell?" A nurse was standing in the doorway. She was young, with kind eyes and tired shoulders. She had heard. She must have heard. I couldn't form the words. She came to the bedside quickly, checking the monitors. Her hand rested on my shoulder, warm and solid. "Breathe, honey. You need to breathe. Your heart rate is spiking." "They sold my house," I whispered. The nurse paused. She looked at me. Really looked at me. She didn't dismiss it as drug talk. She saw the terror in my eyes. "Who did?" "My parents. They used a paper." While I was asleep, she tightened her grip on my shoulder. "Okay, listen to me. Do you have anyone else? A partner? A friend?" "Elena." I choked out. "Call Elena," she said firmly. "And tomorrow, when the administration office opens, I want you to ask for a patient advocate. You tell them you are a vulnerable adult and you suspect financial exploitation. Do you understand those words?" I nodded. "Financial exploitation? Vulnerable adult. Use those words," she said. "Now call your friend." I dialed Elena. She answered on the first ring. "Hey, you made it. I was just about to text to see if you were conscious. How is the new hip?" "Elena," I said, my voice breaking. She knew instantly. The tone of my voice cut through her cheerfulness. "What is wrong? Is it a complication? Are you okay? I need you to come here. Please, bring your laptop. And bring my spare key. The one I gave you last year. I am on my way," she said. "I am leaving right now." Elena arrived 40 minutes later. She looked like a hurricane. Hair in a messy bun. Wearing yoga pants and an oversized hoodie. Clutching her MacBook like a shield. She didn't ask questions initially. She just hugged me, mindful of the IV lines, and wiped the tears from my cheeks with her sleeve. "Okay," she said, opening the laptop on the rolling tray table. "Tell me what to type." "Go to the County Recorder of Deeds website," I said. She typed. The screen cast a blue glow on her face. "Search by address, 440 West Sycamore." She hit enter. The loading wheel spun. I held my breath. "There it is," she said softly. She turned the screen toward me. Document type. Deed. Recorded date. Today. Grantor. Natalie Russell. Grantee. Urban Horizon Holdings, LLC. Consideration. $410,000. They sold it for $15,000 under market value. I said, my mind latching onto the data because the emotion was too big to process. They wanted a quick sale. Elena scrolled down. Look at the status. Recorded at 9:15 in the morning. Natalie, you were in pre-op holding then. Open the document image, I said. She clicked the PDF icon. The deed opened. I scanned the legalese until I reached the signature page. There it was. My name, Natalie Russell. It looked like my signature. The loop of the N. The sharp cross of the T. But it was too perfect. It didn't have the slight tremor I usually had when signing important documents. And the ink. It looked flat. Zoom in, I said. Elena pinched the trackpad. The signature was pixelated at the edges. It wasn't ink on paper. It was a digital image, pasted onto the line. That is not real. Elena whispered. I closed my eyes. I thought about the folder, the red accordion folder my mother had been so desperate to find. I kept old tax returns in there, old leases, checks I had voided. They didn't just use the power of attorney. That would require them to sign as Natalie Russell by John Russell. Attorney in fact, that would flag the sale as being done by a third party. This signature was just me. I pulled up my email on my phone again. I went to the sent folder. Nothing new. Check the trash. Elena said. I opened the trash folder. There was an email sent at 7 in the morning, right before they took my phone away for surgery. To Brenda@premiertitle.com. Subject, signed closing docs. Attachment, NR_closing_packet_signed ... PDFI. Opened the attachment. It was the full closing packet, 30 pages of documents. Every single one of them bore my signature. I looked at the metadata of the PDF. Created yesterday, 11:45 p.m. I looked at the timestamp. 11:45 at night. I was asleep. My parents had left my apartment at 9. They had scanned a signature from an old document, maybe from that red folder, and photoshopped it onto the closing papers. Then they logged into my email, probably using the password I had stupidly written in a notebook in that same office closet, and sent it to the title company pretending to be me. They didn't just use a power of attorney. They impersonated me. They forged my signature. I looked at Elena. The anger that had been simmering under the fear finally broke through. It was cold and sharp and clarifying. This isn't a family dispute, I said, my voice steady for the first time since I woke up. Elena looked at me, her face pale. What is it? I pointed at the screen, at the pixelated lie that had cost me my home. It is identity theft. I lay back against the pillows, the pain in my hip throbbing in rhythm with my heart. I was trapped in a hospital bed. I had no home to return to. My bank account was likely next. My parents were convinced they had saved the family, and they expected me to be grateful. But they had made one critical mistake. They thought they were dealing with their daughter, the one who sought their approval, the one who handed over spare keys and legal folders because she wanted to be a good girl. They didn't realize they were now dealing with Natalie Russell, the data analyst, and I had just found the first discrepancy in their data set. I am not going to their house. Elena, I said. She nodded. Her jaw set. You are coming to mine. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, I said, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow we stop crying. Tomorrow we start documenting. The drugs were pulling me back down, the edges of my vision blurring. But as I drifted off, I didn't dream of the condo I had lost. I dreamed of the paper trail I was going to find. They wanted a rescue mission? Fine, I would give them a war. The wheelchair ride to the hospital curb felt like a procession for a deposed queen. I was gripping a plastic bag containing my clothes, my toiletries, and the shreds of my dignity. My hip throbbed with a dull, sickening rhythm. A reminder that my body had been sawed open and screwed back together less than 48 hours ago. Elena pulled her car up, her face set in a grim line. She helped me into the passenger seat with the tenderness one might show a wounded bird. But her eyes were hard. She was ready for a fight. I was just trying not to vomit from the motion sickness caused by the painkillers. Take me to the condo, I said, leaning my head back against the headrest. Are you sure? Elena asked. checking her blind spot as we pulled into traffic. "We can go straight to my place. You do not need to see it." "I need to see it." I said, "I need to know if the locks work. I need to know if I still have a roof." The drive was 20 minutes of silence. I watched the city blur past, the familiar storefronts and street signs looking suddenly alien. When we turned onto West Sycamore Street, my stomach tightened. I looked up at the third floor, at the balcony where I drank my coffee every morning. The plants were gone. Elena parked the car, and I saw it. A large white box truck was idling in the loading zone directly in front of the building entrance. The logo on the side read, "Swift Shore Relocation Services." The back ramp was down. "No," I whispered. Elena turned off the ignition. "Natalie, stay here." I opened the door. The pain in my hips screamed, a hot wire pulling tight from my thigh to my spine. But adrenaline is a powerful anesthetic. I grabbed my crutches from the back seat. I hauled myself up, swaying slightly. "I am not staying here." I hobbled toward the entrance, Elena hovering at my elbow. The front door of the building was propped open with a rubber wedge. 2 men in blue jumpsuits were wheeling a dolly out. On the dolly were 4 cardboard boxes. I recognized the markings on the side. Kitchen. Fragile. It was my handwriting. From when I moved in 5 years ago. I had kept the boxes in the storage unit in the basement. "Stop!" I yelled. My voice was thin, lacking the authority I wanted, but it made them pause. "Put that down." The taller mover wiped sweat from his forehead. He looked at me, then at the clipboard in his hand. "Can I help you, miss?" "That is my stuff," I said, maneuvering the crutches to block their path. "Why do you have my stuff?" "We have a work order for Unit 304, he said, sounding bored. "Full pack and load, going to storage in Jersey." "I did not hire you." I said, "I am the owner of Unit 304. Put it back." He flipped a page on his clipboard. "Look, lady, I have a signed authorization here from the owner's representatives, Mr. and Mrs. Russell. They gave us the keys. They paid the deposit. If you have an issue, you need to take it up with them. We are on the clock." He gestured to his partner, and they started to push the dolly past me. I tried to step in front of them, but my right leg buckled. Elena caught me before I hit the pavement. "Call the police," I gasped, gripping Elena's arm. Before she could pull out her phone, a silver sedan pulled up behind the moving truck. My father's car. They stepped out. My mother was wearing her camel trench coat, looking impeccably put together, as if she were arriving for a brunch rather than the demolition of my life. My father wore his golf windbreaker, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses. "Natalie!" my mother cried out. She rushed over, her heels clicking on the pavement. "What are you doing here? You should be resting. You're going to rip your stitches." I pushed away from Elena and pointed a crutch at the truck. "What is this?" "We are handling it," my father said, walking up behind her. He didn't look at me. He looked at the movers, giving them a curt nod to continue. "Keep working. Guys, we are on a schedule." "Stop!" I screamed at the movers. The movers hesitated, looking between my father and me. "Dad, tell them to stop," I said, my voice shaking. "Natalie, please," my mother said, reaching out to touch my arm. I recoiled. "Do not make a scene on the street. The neighbors will hear. Let them hear," I said. "You sold my house? And now you are stealing my furniture?" "We are not stealing," my father hissed. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "We are putting it in storage. For you. Until you get settled." "Settled where?" I asked. "I live here." "Not anymore," he said. The cruelty of it, the flat matter-of-fact delivery, took the air out of my lungs. "Why?" I asked. The anger was draining away, replaced by a terrifying confusion. "Why are you doing this?" My mother sighed, the long, suffering sigh of a martyr. "We told you on the phone. There is a debt, a family debt. It came up suddenly. It is an emergency." "What kind of debt?" I demanded. "Is it gambling? Is it the business?" "It is complex," my father said. He glanced nervously at the movers, who were listening with undisguised interest while pretending to adjust the straps on the dolly. This is not the place to discuss financial specifics. This is exactly the place, I shouted. You used a power of attorney from 10 years ago. You forged my signature. My mother's face hardened. We did not forge anything. You authorized us to act in your best interest. That is what parents do. We protected you. Protected me from what? From losing everything, she said vaguely. I looked at the building. I looked at the keypad lock on the front door. It was new. A sleek black digital interface had replaced the old silver key cylinder. Give me the code, I said. My father shook his head. The new owners have possession as of noon today. We cannot go in. You mean you cannot go in? I said, I never sold it. I am going to call the police, and I'm going to report a burglary. My father grabbed my arm. His grip was hard. You will do no such thing. Let go of me. I said, listen to me, he said, his voice dropping to a growl I hadn't heard since I was a teenager. You are not going to call the police. You are not going to embarrass this family. There are tax issues involved. If you start digging, if you start bringing in cops and lawyers, you are going to open a box you cannot close. Do you understand? We did this to save you from being liable. Liable for what? I asked. He released my arm. Stepping back as a neighbor walked out of the building, he smiled instantly. A fake, plastic smile. Good afternoon, he called out to the neighbor. Just helping our daughter move. The neighbor, a nice older man named Mr. Henderson, looked at me. I was leaning on crutches, pale, wearing hospital sweatpants, tears streaming down my face. Good luck, Natalie, Mr. Henderson said uncertainly, looking at the moving truck. I wanted to scream, help me, but the shame clamped my throat shut. My father was right about one thing. I had been trained well. We did not air dirty laundry. We did not make scenes. My mother opened the back door of their sedan. Come on, Natalie, get in the car. We have a room set up for you at home. We made your favorite soup. I looked at them. I looked at the people who had raised me, who had paid for my piano lessons, who had driven me to swim practice. I saw strangers. I am not going with you. I said, Natalie, be reasonable. My mother pleaded, you cannot climb the stairs at Elena's apartment. You need care. I am going with Elena. I said, and if you touch one more box, I will scream fire. My father glared at me. You are making a mistake. You are sick, and you are not thinking clearly. When the drugs wear off, you will thank us. I turned to Elena. Get me out of here. We retreated to Elena's car. As we drove away, I watched in the side mirror as my father turned back to the movers and gestured aggressively for them to hurry. They were erasing me from the building, box by box. Elena lived in a ground-floor duplex, thank God. She set me up on her sofa, propping my leg with pillows. She made tea. She didn't say I told you so or your parents are crazy. She just handed me her laptop. Okay, she said, war room is open. I needed to understand the mechanics of the theft. The why, the vague debts and tax issues, was a smokescreen. I needed the how. I called the number for Premier Title and Escrow. The company listed on the voicemail I had received. Premier Title, this is Judy. Hi, Judy, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My name is Natalie Russell. I am calling about a closing that happened today for the property at 440 West Sycamore. File number. I glanced at the notes I had scribbled on a napkin in the car. 89002-214. One moment. Ms. Russell. Generic hold music played. A flute version of a Beatles song. It sounded mocking. Ms. Russell? Judy came back. Yes, I see the file here. Congratulations on the sale. How can I help you? I need to know who the notary was. I said. There was a pause. The notary? Usually. That information is in your closing packet copy. Did you not receive it? I did not receive anything. I said, because I was not there. Oh, right, Judy said brightly. The notes here say it was a remote signing due to medical reasons. We hope you're feeling better. Who was the notary? I asked again. I am not sure I can give out that personal contact info, Judy said, her voice turning cautious. Is there a problem? There is a big problem. Judy. I was under general anesthesia at the time of the alleged signing. I never met a notary. I never signed those papers. The silence on the other end was absolute. Then, the sound of typing. Ms. Russell, if you are alleging fraud, I need to transfer you to our legal department immediately. No, wait, I said, please, if you transfer me, they are going to stonewall me. I just need a name. Please. My parents are telling me one thing, and the bank is telling me another. I just need to know who claimed to see my face today. Judy hesitated. I could hear her breathing. She was likely a low-level assistant who didn't get paid enough to cover up felonies. The notary on the affidavit is Marcus Thorne, she whispered. And the notes say he met you at St. Jude's Hospital at 7:30 this morning. Thank you. Judy. I said. I hung up. Marcus Thorne. 7:30 in the morning. Elena. I said. Pass me my discharge paperwork folder. I dug through the stack of papers until I found the patient rights information sheet. There was a number for the hospital's security and compliance office. I dialed. Security. This is Officer Miller. Hi. I was a patient discharged today. My name is Natalie Russell. I need to check the visitor logs for my room from this morning. I believe someone might have entered my room while I was sleeping. It was a half-truth, but it got his attention. Hold on, ma'am. Let me pull up the access log. Room 412? Yes. Between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. Okay. I have nursing staff at 6:15, phlebotomy at 6:45, your surgeon at 7:10, orderly transport at 8 o'clock to take you to pre-op. Anyone else? I asked. A notary? A lawyer? Anyone signing in as a visitor? No, ma'am. Miller said, no visitor passes were issued for your room this morning. The floor is badge access only, unless they were hospital staff. They did not get in. So Marcus Thorne was a ghost. He had notarized a document claiming I was present, claiming he witnessed my signature, without ever stepping foot in the hospital. He lied. I told Elena, or they used a remote notarization platform and someone pretended to be me on a webcam. But how? They would need my ID. Your mom took a picture of your ID. Elena reminded me. The night before, I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ice pack on my hip. She had planned it, the casual just-in-case photo. It wasn't anxiety, it was ammunition. We need to lock everything down, Elena said. If they have your ID and your signature, they can do more than sell a house. For the next 2 hours, we worked in a frenzy. We called the 3 credit bureaus. I placed a fraud alert and a credit freeze on my files. I called my bank and verbally password protected my accounts, instructing them to reject any transactions not verified by voice with a specific code word. Then we went to my email. I had already seen the forwarding rule, but Elena wanted to dig deeper. She was an IT specialist for a logistics firm. She knew how data moved. Log into your provider's backend, she said, not just the Gmail interface, the account activity log. We scrolled through the IP addresses. There was a login from my apartment IP address 3 days ago. That was me. Then, a login from an IP address in North Carolina yesterday afternoon. North Carolina? I asked. I do not know anyone in North Carolina. VPN. Elena said. They are masking their location. But look at this. She pointed to the aliases section of the settings. A new email address had been linked to my account. N. Russell, consulting@gmail.com, and there was a filter set up. Any email sent to that alias was automatically marked as read and forwarded to another address, admin@northpine-holdings.com. Northpine. I said, that sounds familiar. I searched my memory. My father's business was a small logistics brokerage called Russell Logistics. He didn't have a holding company. I typed Northpine Holdings into Google. Nothing. No website. No LinkedIn. Elena checked the domain registry. Registered 2 months ago. She said, proxy registration. The owner is hidden. It resembles my dad's style. I said, he always uses names that sound like established trees or geographical features to make his shell companies look sturdy. Oak Ridge, Riverstone, North Pine. He created a shadow email for me. I realized he could correspond with the title company or the buyer using this alias, and if they replied, it would come to my inbox but immediately get forwarded to him without me seeing it. It was sophisticated. It wasn't just my parents fumbling with papers. Someone who knew how to configure email servers and domain masking helped them. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mr. Henderson, my neighbor. Natalie, I am so sorry about earlier. I did not want to get in the middle of a family fight, but I thought you should know something. I stared at the bubbles indicating he was typing more. 2 weeks ago, I saw your mother in the lobby. She was with a man. Tall, expensive suit, silver hair. They were standing by the mailboxes. She pointed at your door and laughed. She said something like, "She won't even notice until the check clears." I thought they were joking about a surprise gift. I am sorry. I dropped the phone on the sofa cushion. 2 weeks ago. I hadn't even scheduled the surgery 2 weeks ago. I was still debating it with my doctor. They knew I was going to have the surgery before I did. I whispered, or they were waiting for any opportunity where I would be incapacitated. This wasn't an emergency decision made to cover a sudden debt. This was an assassination. I reached for the tote bag my mother had left on my kitchen island the night before the surgery. The one I had brought to the hospital and then to Elena's. She had called it a recovery care bag. I had not looked inside it yet. I pulled it open. There was a fuzzy blanket, a bag of lemon drops, a pair of thick socks, the props of a caring mother. At the bottom, under the socks, was a manila envelope. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It was a typed list of numbers. Account 4490, my primary checking. Account 2218, my savings. Amex 9001, Fidelity IOR. My entire financial life was listed there, and next to each number was the current balance, accurate as of 3 days ago. Stuck to the paper was a yellow post-it note. The handwriting was jagged. Hurried. It was my mother's handwriting. Don't mention trust. Ever. I stared at the note. Don't mention trust. Did she mean trust, as in the emotion? Don't mention that we broke her trust? That seemed too poetic for my mother. She was pragmatic. Or did she mean a trust? A legal entity? I didn't have a trust. My assets were simple. I owned the condo, formerly, a car, and a retirement account. There was no trust fund. But the note was a command, a warning. It chilled me more than the empty apartment or the forged signature. It suggested that there was something else, something bigger than the condo, that they were terrified I would find out about. They sold the condo to distract me. I said slowly, or to liquidate me, but this note, this is about something else. Elena looked at the note. What trust? Natalie? I don't know. I said. I leaned back. The exhaustion finally crashing over me like a tidal wave. The pain in my hip was sharp, but the pain in my chest was a hollow, aching void. They had planned this for weeks, maybe months. They had watched me limp around in pain, waiting for the moment I would go under the knife. They had met with buyers while I was at work. They had set up email servers. They had forged my name. And they had done it all while telling me they loved me. I looked at the moving truck in my mind, driving away with my life in cardboard boxes. They think they won. I said to the empty room, they think because they have the money and the house. It is over. I picked up the post-it note and stuck it to the screen of Elena's laptop, but they left a trail, and I'm going to follow it. The law office of Elias Vance was located in a glass tower that looked down on the city like a judgmental god. I sat in a leather chair that cost more than my first car, my crutches leaning against a mahogany desk that seemed designed to intimidate. Elias was a friend of a friend, a litigator who specialized in real estate fraud and quiet title actions. He was 50, with silver-rimmed glasses and the kind of calm demeanor that usually signaled bad news. He had been reviewing the documents I had managed to scrape together for the last 20 minutes in silence. Finally, he took off his glasses and rubbed the bridge of his nose. "Natalie," he said, "I am going to be direct with you. This is a mess. I know it is a mess." I said, "I want to know if I can fix it." He tapped the printout of the deed transfer. Here's the problem. In property law, we have a concept called the bona fide purchaser for value. If the people who bought your condo, this Urban Horizon Holdings, bought it in good faith, without knowing about the fraud, and paid fair market value, the courts are very hesitant to take the property away from them. They prefer to give you monetary damages instead. I sat up straighter, wincing as the movement pulled at my hip stitches. I do not want damages. Elias, I do not want a check. I want my home. I want the place where I picked out the tile and painted the walls. They stole it. I understand, he said, but if the buyer claims innocence, your parents are the ones on the hook for the money, and if your parents have already spent it or hidden it, a judgment against them is just a piece of paper. You could win the lawsuit and still be homeless and broke. So they win? I asked, my voice rising. They just get to do this? Not necessarily. Elias said. He leaned forward. The bona fide purchaser protection has a limit. It collapses if the deed itself is void ab initio, void from the beginning. A forged deed is void. It conveys nothing. It is a nullity. If we can prove you did not sign that deed, it does not matter how innocent the buyer is. The transaction never legally happened. I did not sign it. I said, I was unconscious. We need to prove that, he said, and we need to prove that the notarization was fraudulent. If a notary stamped a document saying you were present when you were not, that attacks the validity of the recording. He pulled a file folder from his drawer. I ran a preliminary search on the entity that bought your place. Urban Horizon Holdings. It is a Delaware LLC, shell company, hard to trace. But I also ran a search on your parents. I held my breath. They formed a limited liability company. 3 months ago, Elias said, Russell Management Group. I frowned. My dad has had a business for years. Russell Logistics. This is different. Elias said, this is a new entity, and the mailing address for it is not their home, and it is not your father's office. It is a suite number on East 4th Street. I know that building. I said, it is a virtual office center. You rent a mailbox and a receptionist answer service. Exactly, Elias said. It is where people go when they want to receive mail without being found. Now, why would your parents need a ghost address 3 months before your surgery? To hide the money, I whispered. Elias nodded. It suggests premeditation. This wasn't a desperate act of parents trying to pay off a loan shark on a Tuesday. This was an architectural plan. They built the structure to catch the money before they even pushed you off the ledge. He handed me a notepad. Here is your homework. We need the full closing packet. Not just the deed. We need the escrow instructions, the wire transfer receipts, and the notary journal. The title company is stonewalling you because they are terrified of liability. I will draft a demand letter today that will make them sweat. But while I do that, you need to find the soft spots in their story. What do you mean? Your parents have a narrative, Elias said. They are selling this as a family rescue. You need to find the evidence that proves it was a heist. You need leverage, because right now, this is a civil dispute. If we find enough evidence of criminal fraud, it becomes a leverage point that might force them to settle before we even file the complaint. I left his office with a mandate. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a researcher. 2 days later, the demand letter worked. Or rather, the threat of a lawsuit against Premier Title's bond insurance worked. A courier delivered a thick envelope to Elena's apartment containing the full, unredacted closing file. Elena and I sat at her kitchen table, treating the documents like evidence in a murder investigation. Look at this, I said, pointing to the notary block on the mortgage satisfaction document. The stamp belonged to Marcus Thorne. The commission number was listed as 1449002. I pulled up the Secretary of State's notary search database on my laptop. I typed in the name, no results found. I tried the commission number. Result, Jane L. Smathers. Commission expired, 2018. They did not even hire a dirty notary, I said, feeling a mix of horror and vindication. They faked the stamp. They literally ordered a rubber stamp online with a fake name and a stolen number. Elena looked over my shoulder. That is a felony. Natalie, that is forgery of a public seal. It gets worse, I said. Look at the money. I flipped to the escrow ledger. It was a spreadsheet showing where every penny of the $410,000 sale price went. Line 1. Payoff to First National Bank, mortgage, $130,000. Line 2. County transfer tax, $4,000. Line 3. Title insurance, $2,000. Line 4. Net proceeds wire, $274,000. The beneficiary of the wire on line 4 was not Natalie Russell. It was North Pine Consulting. There is that name again. Elena said, the one from the email forwarding rule. I looked at the routing number. It went to a bank in Nevada. My parents do not have business in Nevada. I said, I stared at the name North Pine. It nagged at me. My father was a creature of habit. He wasn't creative. He recycled passwords. He told the same 3 jokes at every dinner party. If he picked a name like North Pine, it came from somewhere. North, Pine. I closed my eyes, visualizing my parents' house, the study where my father worked, the bookshelves. There was a painting on the wall, a landscape. It was a print of a famous painting he always bragged about buying at a flea market, the Lone Pine, and they lived on North Bridge Road. North, Bridge, Lone, Pine, North Pine. He is so lazy, I said, opening my eyes. He named his shell company after his street and a poster on his wall. But why Nevada? Elena asked. Because Nevada has strict privacy laws for corporations, I said. He is trying to make sure I cannot see who owns the account. I grabbed my phone. I am going to see them. Natalie, Elena said, warningly. Elias said not to talk to them without a plan. I have a plan. I said, I am going to get them to say it. I am going to get them to admit they think the money is theirs. You cannot just walk in there, Elena said. I am not walking. I said, patting my crutches. I am hobbling, and I am recording. Our state was a one-party consent state. As long as I was part of the conversation, I could record it without their permission. I downloaded a high-fidelity voice recorder app and tested it. Sliding the phone into the front pocket of my hoodie, Elena drove me. She wanted to come in, but I told her to wait in the car. This had to be family. They would not talk if there was a witness. My parents' house was a sprawling colonial in the suburbs, manicured and imposing. It was the house where I had learned to ride a bike, where I had cried over breakups, where I had learned that love was something you had to earn with good grades and obedience. I unlocked the front door with my key. I didn't knock. They were in the kitchen. My mother was arranging flowers in a vase. My father was reading the paper on his tablet. The domestic normalcy of it made my stomach churn. Natalie, my mother said, dropping a stem of hydrangea. We were just talking about you. We were going to drive over to Elena's later with some casseroles. I didn't smile. I stood in the doorway, leaning on my crutches, my phone recording in my pocket. I saw the ledger. I said, my father didn't look up from his tablet, but his finger stopped scrolling. What ledger? He asked calmly. The closing ledger. From the sale you faked. I know about North Pine Consulting. I know the money went to Nevada. My mother wiped her hands on a dish towel. Natalie, you are violating the doctor's orders. You need to reduce your stress. Stop parenting me, I snapped. The sound echoed off the granite countertops. You stole $274,000 from me. I want to know why. And do not give me the tax issue excuse. I checked my IRS transcripts. I have 0 tax liens. My father finally looked up. He took off his reading glasses. He looked tired, but not guilty. He looked annoyed, like I was a client questioning a surcharge. Sit down. Natalie, he said. I am standing. Fine, he said. You want the truth? The truth is that apartment was never really yours. I laughed. A harsh barking sound. I paid the mortgage for 5 years. My name was on the deed. And who paid the down payment? He asked quietly. I froze. $80,000, he said. That is a lot of money for a 28-year-old girl. Where did that come from? It came from Grandma. I said, She gave it to me before she died. It came from the family, my father corrected. Rose was my mother. That money was part of the family estate. She gave it to you because we allowed it, because we wanted you to have a head start. But it was an investment. Allowed it? I said. She wrote the check to me. She told me specifically she was senile. My mother interrupted. She was handing out checks to everyone in those last years. We didn't contest it because we wanted you to be secure. But let us be realistic. Natalie, you would never have had that equity without us. So you are repossessing it? I asked. Like a car? We are reallocating it. My father said, the business is in a tight spot, a temporary liquidity crunch. We use the equity from the condo to bridge the gap. When the market turns, we will buy you another place, a better place, maybe a house with a yard. You forged my signature. I said, you committed a felony. We used the power of attorney. My mother said, the one from 10 years ago. I shouted, that I signed so you could pick up my transcripts while I was in Europe. It does not give you the right to sell my home while I am in surgery. It was valid, my father said. Shrugging, we checked with a lawyer. It grants broad powers. What lawyer? I asked. The one who told you to make a fake notary stamp? His eyes narrowed. Watch your tone. I felt a cold clarity wash over me. They truly believed they were right. In their minds, I was just an extension of them. My assets were their assets. My autonomy was a privilege they could revoke whenever they needed cash. You didn't just borrow it. I said, you sent it to a shell company. You tried to hide it. That is not borrowing. That is theft. It is protection, my mother cried out, slamming her hand on the counter. Do you think we wanted to do this? We are drowning. Natalie, the logistics firm is under audit. The lines of credit are frozen. If we didn't come up with cash, we were going to lose this house, your childhood home. Would you prefer that? Would you prefer we live on the street while you sit in your condo drinking lattes? I stared at her. This was the hook, the guilt, the weapon they had used on me my whole life. So you ate your young, I said softly, to save the house. We did what survivors do, my father said, and you will thank us later when this blows over and we are all still standing. I backed away toward the door. I had it. I had the admission. We used the equity. We are drowning. It was never really yours. I am not going to thank you. I said, I am going to sue you. My father stood up. He was a tall man, and he used his height to intimidate. You will not sue your family. Natalie, you do not have the stomach for it, and even if you did, good luck proving anything. The money is gone. It is invested. You cannot squeeze blood from a stone. I looked at him, really looked at him, for the last time as a daughter. I saw a small, frightened man hiding behind a bully's mask. I do not need blood. I said, I just need the truth. I turned and hobbled out. My mother called my name, her voice wavering between anger and panic. But I didn't stop. I got into Elena's car and exhaled, a long, shuddering breath. Did you get it? Elena asked. I tapped my pocket. I got everything. But as we drove away, my mind kept snagging on one thing my father had said. She was senile. We allowed it. Grandma Rose? My grandmother had not been senile. She had been sharp as a tack until the day her heart stopped. She had been a forensic accountant before she retired. She knew exactly what she was doing with her money, and she had given me that check for the down payment in a very specific way. She had invited me to lunch. Just the two of us. She had handed me the envelope and held my hand tight. Natalie, she had said, this is for you, not for the family pot. For you. Build a wall around it. She knew. I realized. She knew what they were. I needed to feel close to her. I felt untethered, floating in a void where parents were predators. I needed to remember that someone in my bloodline had actually loved me without conditions. Elena, I said, take me to the U store. It on 5th. Storage? Now? I have a unit there. It was Grandma's. I kept paying for it after she died because I couldn't bear to sort through her papers. I need to go there. The storage facility was a concrete block of a building that smelled of dust and damp cardboard. My code still worked. We took the freight elevator to the third floor, Unit 309. I cut the padlock with the bolt cutters Elena borrowed from the front desk manager. I had lost the key years ago. The door rolled up with a metallic screech. The unit was small, 5 by 5. It was filled with file cabinets and plastic bins. Grandma Rose had saved everything. Tax returns from 1980, Christmas cards, recipes. I sat on a plastic tote, resting my crutches against the wall. I felt like an intruder in a tomb. Start looking for financial records. I told Elena. Anything that mentions my parents, loans, gifts. We dug for an hour. I found old birthday cards. To my darling Natalie, keep shining. I found a recipe for apple cake. Then, at the bottom of a gray filing cabinet, I found a set of red binders. They were labeled with a label maker. Natalie, keep private. My heart hammered. I pulled the first binder out. It wasn't financial records. It was a journal, or rather, a log. June 12th, 2015. Robert asked for money again, said the business was expanding. I know he's lying. He is gambling on commodities. I gave him $5,000 to keep him quiet. But I told him no more. August 4th, 2016. Martha, my mother, came by, asked about my will, asked if I had set up trusts. I told her everything was going to the church. She looked furious. I must protect Natalie. I read page after page. It was a chronicle of my parents' greed. Grandma Rose had seen it all. She had watched them drain their accounts, leverage their assets, and come to her with their hands out, smiling their fake smiles. I opened the second binder. Taped to the inside cover was a letter. The envelope said, "For Natalie. Read when you're old enough to understand that blood isn't always thicker than water." I opened it. The paper was heavy, expensive stationer's stock. Her handwriting was elegant and looped. My dearest Natalie, if you are reading this, I am gone, and you have likely discovered the hard truth about your father and mother. It breaks my heart to write this, but I have watched them for years. They borrow love like money, and they never pay it back. They will call it care when it is control. They will tell you that family shares everything, but they only mean that you should share with them. I gave you the money for the condo in hopes that it would give you a fortress, but I know my son. He sees assets as opportunities. If he ever comes for your home, if he ever tries to take what is yours to fill the hole in his own pocket, you must not let him. You are kind. Natalie, you have a soft heart. They will use that. They will make you feel guilty for saying no. Do not let them. You owe them respect, perhaps, but you do not owe them your future. I have taken steps. I did not put everything in the will, because wills can be contested. And your father is litigious. I hid things. For you, check the safety deposit box. Bank of America, Box 404. The key is taped to the back of this page. Love, Grandma. I turned the page. There, taped to the cardboard with yellowing Scotch tape, was a small, brass key. I was crying. Silent. Hot tears that dripped onto the binder. She had known, 10 years ago, she had known this day would come. She had been playing a long game of chess against my parents from beyond the grave. Elena put her hand on my back. "We have to go to the bank," she said gently. We made it to the bank 10 minutes before closing. The branch manager looked skeptical at my crutches and my tear-stained face, but the key was legitimate, and my name was on the access card. Grandma had added me as a signer years ago, a trip I had forgotten about. We went into the vault. The air was cool and smelled of money. I opened Box 404. It was mostly empty. There were no stacks of cash, no diamonds. There was just a single, thick envelope. On the front, in Grandma's handwriting, "If they ever take your home, open this." I looked at Elena. Her eyes were wide. I slit the envelope open with my fingernail. I pulled out a document. It was bound in blue legal backing. Certificate of Trust, the Rose Russell. Irrevocable trust. I scanned the pages. My legal knowledge was limited, but the words jumped out at me. Grantor, Rose Russell. Beneficiary, Natalie Russell, trustee. Fidelity. Corporate trust services. Assets. There was a property listed, 12 Oakhaven Lane, Willow Creek. I knew Willow Creek. It was a small, quiet town about an hour north of the city. It wasn't a wealthy area, but it was peaceful, green. I read the clause at the bottom. This trust is established for the sole benefit of Natalie Russell. The existence of this trust shall be kept confidential from Robert Russell and Martha Russell. Upon the beneficiary reaching the age of 30, the trustee shall distribute the deed to the property to the beneficiary. I was 33. The house was mine. It had been mine for 3 years. Why didn't I know? I asked, my voice trembling. I flipped the page. There was a letter of instruction to the trustee. Do not notify beneficiary by mail. My son intercepts mail. Notify by phone only after strict verification. They must have tried to call me. I realized, maybe years ago, maybe I thought it was spam. Maybe I missed the voicemail. But the house was there, waiting. My parents had sold my condo. They had stolen my sanctuary. They thought they had left me with nothing but a hospital bill and a rented room in their house of lies. But Grandma Rose had built me a lifeboat. I held the document to my chest. I felt a strange sensation in my gut. It wasn't just relief. It was power. My parents didn't know about this. They had turned over every rock in Grandma's estate, fighting for every scrap. But she had hidden this one thing so deep they never saw it. They think I am destitute, I told Elena. They think I have nowhere to go. They think that eventually I will have to crawl back to them because I cannot afford to sue them and pay rent at the same time. Elena grinned. A savage, sharp grin. But you have a house. I have a house. I said, a paid-off house. I looked at the address again. 12 Oakhaven Lane. It wasn't just a house. It was a secret base. It was a place where their guilt couldn't reach me. Let's go, I said, shoving the trust document into my bag. Where? Elena asked. To Willow Creek, I said. I want to see what freedom looks like. The conference room in Elias Vance's office smelled of lemon polish and billable hours. It was a sterile, glass-walled box that felt 1,000,000 miles away from the chaos of my life. Yet it was the only place where things seemed to make sense. Elias sat at the head of the table, flanked by a speakerphone that was currently broadcasting the gravelly voice of Arthur Sterling, a senior trust officer from Fidelity Corporate Trust Services. So you are telling me, I said, leaning toward the speakerphone, that I have owned a house for 3 years? Correct. Ms. Russell. Mr. Sterling's voice crackled. The Rose Russell. Irrevocable trust stipulated that the deed to 12 Oakhaven Lane was to be transferred to your name upon your 30th birthday. That date occurred 3 years ago. The title is currently held in the trust's name for your benefit. But for all legal intents and purposes, it is your property. The taxes are paid. The insurance is current. I looked at Elias. He was taking notes, his pen scratching rhythmically against the yellow legal pad. Why didn't I know? I asked. Why didn't anyone tell me? There was a pause on the line, followed by the shuffling of papers. Ms. Russell, your grandmother was very specific in her drafting instructions. Mr. Sterling said, she included let us call it a privacy protocol. Clause 14B. It states that no written correspondence regarding the trust was ever to be mailed to your primary residence if that residence was shared with or known to Robert and Martha Russell. I felt a lump form in my throat. She knew. She knew they would snoop. She knew they would steam open envelopes. The protocol required us to notify you via telephone. Mr. Sterling continued, we attempted to contact you on your 30th birthday, and again 3 months later. We left voicemails. I closed my eyes, searching my memory. 3 years ago, I was working 80-hour weeks, trying to get a promotion. I was getting 10 spam calls a day about car warranties and student loans. I probably deleted the voicemails without listening, assuming it was just another scammer trying to sell me something, because I did not respond. The trust went into a holding pattern. Mr. Sterling said, the assets were preserved. The house was maintained by a local property management firm, paid for by the trust's liquidity fund. It has been waiting for you, waiting. My parents had stripped me of the home I bought with my own sweat and their stolen approval, but Grandma Rose had built a bunker I didn't even know existed, camouflaged by time and silence. "Can I go there?" I asked. "It is your house." "Ms. Russell," Mr. Sterling said, "I can courier the keys to your attorney's office this afternoon." When the call ended, Elias sat back and looked at me over the rim of his glasses. "This changes the landscape." "Natalie." "How?" I asked. "It means you are not desperate," he said. "Your parents are banking on your desperation. They think they have you cornered. They think you have no assets, no liquidity, and nowhere to live. They think you will eventually have to take their settlement offer because you will run out of runway. But you just found a new runway." He slid a folder across the table. "But we have to talk about the current war before we talk about the sanctuary," he said. I opened the folder. My parents were not letting up, since I had walked out of their kitchen 3 days ago. My phone had become a weapon. They didn't scream. They didn't threaten. They did something much more effective. They worried. "Natalie, please pick up. We are so scared for you. Dad is having chest pains. The stress is killing him. Please just come home so we can talk. We made the guest room up with your old quilt. We just want to take care of you." It was a barrage of weaponized love. They were rewriting the narrative in real time. In their version of the story, they weren't thieves. They were martyrs who had made a hard executive decision to save the family. And I was the ungrateful, mentally unstable daughter who was lashing out because of the anesthesia. They offered me a temporary room. They offered to pay for my physical therapy. They offered everything except the one thing I wanted, the truth and my money. I almost caved last night. I admitted to Elias, staring at the polished table. I was in so much pain. The hip was throbbing, and I was sleeping on Elena's couch. I just wanted to go somewhere familiar. I wanted my mom to bring me soup. I wanted to believe their lie because the lie is warmer than the truth. Elias nodded, his expression softening. "That is how undue influence works. Natalie, it targets the part of you that wants to be a child. But you are not a child. You are a plaintiff." He pulled a document from the bottom of the stack. "And your opponents are getting sloppy," he added. "What is that?" I asked. "We received an email from the buyer's agent this morning." He said, "The agent for Urban Horizon Holdings. They want you to sign a document." They called it a minor correction. I read the paper. It was an affidavit of identity. It was a simple form, asking me to confirm that I was indeed the Natalie Russell who appeared on the deed. "Why do they need this if they already have the notarized deed?" I asked. "Exactly," Elias said, a small, shark-like smile appearing. "If the sale was clean. They wouldn't need it. They are asking for it because the title insurance company is balking. Someone at the title plant probably flagged the discrepancy in the notary stamp. Or maybe they saw your credit freeze come through. They are trying to backfill the file. They want you to ratify the fraud. So they know." I said. "They suspect," Elias corrected, "and they are terrified. If you sign this, you waive your right to contest the sale. You legitimize the theft." I pushed the paper away as if it were infected. "I am not signing anything." "Good," Elias said. "But here's the smoking gun." He flipped to the next page. It was a credit inquiry report. "We pulled your parents' credit history as part of the discovery for the potential lawsuit. Look at the inquiries from 4 months ago." I scanned the list. First National Bank. Home equity line of credit. Denied. Citibank. HELOC. Denied. Rocket mortgage. Cash out. Refinance. Denied. They tried to borrow against the condo before they sold it. I realized. Elias nodded. They tried to take out a second mortgage in your name. They likely forged your signature on those applications too, but the banks rejected them, probably because your debt-to-income ratio would have been too high. Or because the banks required an in-person appraisal that your parents couldn't facilitate without you knowing. So the sale wasn't the plan. I said, the realization settling in my stomach like lead. The sale was plan B. They just wanted the cash. Elias said, they didn't care if you kept the condo or lost it, as long as they got the liquidity. When the bank said no to the loan, they decided to liquidate the asset entirely. It was a cold, mathematical calculation. I wasn't a daughter, I was a portfolio. And the buyer? I asked. Urban Horizon? We are digging into them, Elias said. There are inconsistencies. They paid $410,000. The comps in your building are selling for $435,000. A $25,000 discount in a hot market? That smells. And they waived the inspection. I remembered. They waived the inspection. And they closed in 10 days. Elias said. That is aggressive. It suggests they knew the seller was distressed and wanted a quick exit. A sophisticated buyer would ask why a 33-year-old woman is selling her prime real estate below market value with no inspection. They looked the other way. If they knew it was fraud. I started, if they knew, or if they should have known, they lose their protection. Elias finished. And we get the condo back. I left the office with the heavy brass key to the Oakhaven house in my pocket. It felt warmer than the metal should have been. I went back to Elena's apartment. She was working from home, her laptop set up on the kitchen island. Surrounded by coffee cups. Pack a bag, I said. She looked up, startled. Are we running away? We are going on a field trip, I said. We left the city an hour later. Elena drove. I sat in the passenger seat, watching the skyline recede in the side mirror, the glass tower where I worked, the brick warehouse where I used to live, the hospital where I had been violated. It all shrank until it was just a gray smudge on the horizon. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Natalie, Aunt Linda is asking why you are not answering her calls. You are embarrassing us. Please just let us explain. I stared at the screen. The guilt flared. A conditioned reflex. You are embarrassing us. The ultimate sin in the Russell household. I started to type a reply. I'm sorry. I just need time. Then I stopped. I looked at Elena. She was humming along to the radio, her hands tapping on the steering wheel. She had taken days off work, driven me to appointments, fed me, and housed me, all without asking for a single thing in return. That was love. What my parents were doing was a transaction. I deleted the draft. I blocked Aunt Linda's number. Then, taking a deep breath, I muted the conversation with my parents. I didn't block them. Elias said we needed to preserve the evidence of their harassment, but I silenced them. Kindness shouldn't require silence, Elena said, glancing at me. She had seen me hesitate. I know. I said, I am done being quiet. We turned off the highway 30 minutes later, onto a 2-lane road that wound through rolling hills and dense patches of oak and maple trees. The air here was different. It didn't smell like exhaust and hot asphalt. It smelled of damp earth and pine needles. Willow Creek was the kind of town that time forgot. A main street with a hardware store, a diner, and a post office. No high-rises, no sirens. The GPS led us up a winding road away from the town center. Turn left on Oakhaven Lane, the mechanical voice instructed. It was a gravel road, crunching satisfyingly under the tires. The houses here were set far back from the street, separated by hedges and stone walls. Number 12 was at the end of the cul-de-sac. Elena slowed the car to a crawl. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't a sleek, modern box like my condo. It was a cottage, a craftsman bungalow with deep eaves and a wide front porch. The paint was a soft, sage green that blended into the woods behind it. The trim was cream. It looked lived in, even though no one had lived there for years. The garden was overgrown, a riot of hydrangeas and wild roses that had climbed over the picket fence, but it wasn't neglected. It was just wild. I opened the car door. The silence hit me first. No traffic, no construction noise, just the wind in the trees and the distant call of a crow. I grabbed my crutches and crunched across the gravel driveway. Elena walked behind me, respectful of the moment. I reached the porch stairs. They were sturdy wood. I hauled myself up, my hip twinging but complaining less than usual. I stood in front of the door. It was solid oak, with a small oval window of beveled glass. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the brass key. It was heavy, old-fashioned, not a fob, not a key card, a piece of metal cut to fit a specific lock. I slid it into the keyhole. It turned with a heavy, satisfying thunk. I pushed the door open. The air inside was stale, but clean. It smelled of lavender and old paper. I stepped onto the hardwood floor. The house was fully furnished, but not with generic rental furniture. It was furnished with things that looked like they had a history. A velvet armchair in the corner, a heavy oak dining table, rugs that were faded but intricate. "Who lived here?" Elena whispered, stepping in behind me. "I don't know," I said. I moved through the living room. There was no dust. The management company must have come in regularly to clean. It felt like the occupants had just stepped out for a walk. I went into the kitchen, yellow tiles, a porcelain sink, a window that looked out over a backyard that was completely enclosed by a high stone wall. It was private. It was safe. I found a hallway leading to the bedrooms. The first room was set up as a guest room, with a simple iron bed. The second room was larger, with a bay window and a quilt on the bed that looked handmade. But at the end of the hall, there was a third door. It was locked. I tried the handle. It didn't budge. I looked at the keychain. There was a second, smaller key on the ring. I tried it. The lock clicked. I opened the door. It wasn't a bedroom. It was a study, walls lined with bookshelves, a heavy desk in the center, and on the desk, a row of cardboard boxes. They were sealed with packing tape, labeled in thick black marker. Rose Russell, Private Archives, Rose Russell, Legal, Natalie, Future. I moved toward the desk. My legs felt weak, and I sank into the leather chair behind the desk. It groaned under my weight. A welcoming sound. I reached for the box labeled Natalie, Future. I used one of my crutches to pierce the tape, sawing through it until the flaps popped open. Inside, there were no legal documents, no deeds, no trusts. There were photo albums. I pulled one out. It was red leather. I opened it. The first photo was of me. I was maybe 5 years old. I was standing in front of this house. I stared at the picture. I was wearing a polka dot dress and holding a plastic shovel. My grandmother was kneeling next to me, laughing. I flipped the page. Me at 7, sitting on the porch swing. Me at 10, climbing the oak tree in the backyard. I didn't remember this. I closed my eyes, trying to access the files in my brain that had been corrupted. I remembered visiting Grandma Rose, but I always thought we visited her at her apartment in the city. "We came here," I whispered. I flipped more pages. There was a photo of my father. He was standing on the lawn, looking angry. My grandmother was standing on the porch, pointing at the driveway. She was kicking him out. I looked at the date on the back of the photo. July 1999. That was the summer my parents sent me to camp for 2 months. I hadn't gone to camp. I had come here. I had suppressed it, or they had told me it was a dream. I reached back into the box. At the bottom, there was a small, framed photograph. It was me, age 8. I was standing in the doorway of this room. I was holding a set of keys. Grandma Rose was behind me, her hands on my shoulders. Tucked into the frame was a note. "For the day you remember." I put the frame down on the desk. The memories started to trickle back. The smell of baking bread, the sound of the wind chimes on the porch, the feeling of being safe. My parents hated this place. That is why they never mentioned it. That is why they never brought me here after I got older. This was the place where Grandma Rose told them, no. This was the place where she drew the line. And now, it was mine. I looked around the room. I saw a metal filing cabinet in the corner. I knew, without looking, that it would be filled with the ammunition I needed. The paper trail of every loan my parents had begged for, every boundary they had crossed, every lie they had told her. She had kept the receipts. I heard Elena in the doorway. "Natalie? Are you okay?" I looked up. For the first time in a week, my chest didn't feel like it was in a vice. The anxiety that had been buzzing in my ears like a high-voltage wire was gone. "I am not just okay." I said, "I am home." I stood up. I didn't need the crutches to stand. I leaned on the desk, feeling the solid wood under my palms. They sold my condo because they thought I was weak. I said, they thought I was just an extension of them. They thought that if they took my shelter, I would collapse. I picked up the photo of me holding the keys. But I have been holding the keys for 20 years. I said, I just forgot. I looked at the boxes of documents. We are going to stay here tonight. I told Elena. Here? Elena asked, looking around. We don't have food. We don't have sheets. We have a roof, I said, and we have a fortress. We can order pizza. I walked to the window and looked out at the overgrown garden. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the grass. Tomorrow, I said, I am going to call Elias. I am going to tell him to reject the settlement. I am going to tell him to file the lawsuit. And I am going to tell him to add a count for emotional distress. Because for the first time, I wasn't fighting to get back what I lost. I was fighting to protect what I had found. I sat back down in Grandma Rose's chair. I listened to the silence of the house. It wasn't empty silence. It was the silence of a held breath, waiting to be exhaled. My parents could scream, and guilt trip, and forge signatures. They could send movers to steal my furniture. They could lie to judges and notaries. But they couldn't get in here. This was the one place they couldn't touch. I took my phone out of my pocket. I looked at the muted thread of texts from my mother. Just call us. We love you. I typed a reply. I am safe. I am at Oakhaven. Do not come here. I hit send. Then I turned the phone off. I sat in the darkening room, watching the dust motes dance in the last beam of sunlight, and I felt something I hadn't felt since I was 8 years old. I was untouchable. Filing a lawsuit against your parents does not feel like justice. It feels like an amputation. I signed the complaint on a Tuesday morning in Elias Vance's conference room. The document was thick, heavy with attachments and exhibits. Natalie Russell versus Robert Russell, Martha Russell, Urban Horizon Holdings, LLC, and Premier Title Escrow. It alleged fraud, conversion, civil conspiracy, and elder financial abuse. Account Elias added after we reviewed Grandma Rose's files. When the pen lifted from the paper, I didn't feel a surge of triumph. I felt a wave of nausea. I was officially detonating the nuclear family. The fallout was immediate. By Thursday, the summons had been served. By Friday, the flying monkeys arrived. My phone, which I had unmuted to communicate with Elias, became a lightning rod for the extended Russell clan. My Aunt Linda, my mother's sister, called first. She was a woman who equated sweeping things under the rug with godliness. Natalie, she said, her voice dripping with that specific brand of toxic concern. Your mother called me. She is hysterical. She says you are suing them because of a misunderstanding about the apartment. It is not a misunderstanding. Linda, I said, sitting on the porch of the Oakhaven house, watching a cardinal peck at the feeder. They forged my signature and sold my home while I was unconscious. Oh, honey, she said, you sound so agitated. Your mother said the anesthesia really messed with your head. She said you are paranoid, that you are imagining people are out to get you. I am not imagining the deed recorded at the county courthouse. I said, listen to yourself. She snapped. You are destroying your parents' reputation over money. Money! After everything they did for you? Private school? Piano lessons? And this is how you repay them? By dragging them into court like criminals? They are criminals. I said, you will regret this, Linda said, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. When you wake up from this episode and realize you have no family left, do not come crying to me. You are being manipulated by some predatory lawyer. Wake up, Natalie. I hung up. Then came the cousins. Texts that ranged from, WTF is wrong with you? To, Mom says you're having a breakdown. Do you need help? They had circled the wagons. My parents had gotten to them first, spinning a narrative of a daughter gone mad, a post-operative psychosis that turned a loving child into a litigious monster. They used my vulnerability, my surgery, my pain, to discredit me. It was brilliant, in a sick way. If I was crazy, then the lawsuit wasn't a valid legal claim. It was just a symptom of my illness. I stayed at Oakhaven, commuting into the city only when absolutely necessary, but I couldn't hide forever. I had a job. I had a life that I had to maintain. Or they would win by attrition. I returned to work the following Monday. I walked into the glass lobby of the data tech firm where I worked. my crutches clicking on the polished terrazzo. I felt exposed. I swiped my badge at the turnstile. Natalie. The voice was low, familiar, and terrifying. I froze. My father was sitting on one of the leather benches in the waiting area, near the security desk. He was wearing his best suit, the charcoal one he wore to weddings and funerals. He stood up as I turned. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like a worried dad. "I cannot talk to you," I said, gripping my crutches. My lawyer said no contact. He walked toward me. He didn't rush. He moved with a calm, sad authority that made the security guard look up and smile sympathetically. "I am not here to fight. Natalie. I brought you these." He held out a bag from my favorite bakery. "I just wanted to see if you were okay. Your mother is sick with worry. She hasn't slept in 3 days. Leave me alone," I said. My voice was too loud in the quiet lobby. A receptionist looked over. He stepped closer, invading my personal space. He smelled of aftershave and peppermint. It was the smell of my childhood, and it made me want to vomit. "You are making a scene," he whispered, his smile never wavering for the benefit of the onlookers. "Is this what you want? You want your boss to know you are suing your own father? You want them to think you are unstable?" I stepped back. "You are the one who is here. You are stalking me. I am trying to save you," he hissed. "Drop the suit. Natalie, we can fix this. We can pay you back over time. But if you take this to a judge, if you make this public, I will make sure everyone knows about your history." "My history?" I asked. "I have no history." "I will tell them about the anxiety medication," he said. "I will tell them about how overwhelmed you get. I will paint a picture of a girl who couldn't handle her own life and needed her parents to step in. And they will believe me, because I am the father, and you are just a hysterical girl." "Security!" I yelled. The guard looked up, startled. "This man is harassing me," I shouted. "I have a pending legal action against him. Get him out of here." My father's face went rigid. The mask slipped for a split second, revealing pure, cold rage. Then he smoothed it back into place. "I am leaving," he told the guard, holding up his hands. "My daughter is just having a hard time." He looked at me one last time. "You are dead to us," he mouthed. Then he turned and walked out the revolving doors. I shook all the way up to the 30th floor. I locked myself in a bathroom stall and cried for 10 minutes. Then I washed my face, put on my armor, and went to my desk. He wanted me to break. He wanted me to be the unstable girl he described. I would not give him the satisfaction. That afternoon, the digital assault shifted tactics. My mother stopped calling. Instead, she started sending voice notes, long, rambling monologues that swung wildly between martyrdom and viciousness. I listened to them in Elias's office, playing them for him as evidence. "Natalie, I don't understand how you can be so cruel." Her voice wavered through the speaker. "We fed you. We clothed you. We sacrificed our retirement for you, and now you want to destroy our reputation? The neighbors are talking. The church is talking. How can you be so selfish?" Then, the next one, sent 20 minutes later. "You ungrateful little brat. You think you are so smart with your lawyer? You have no idea who you are dealing with. You are nothing without us. You would be living in a box if we hadn't pushed you. Go ahead. Sue us. See what happens. You will never see a dime." Elias listened, his face impassive. "This is good," he said. "Good?" I asked. "It sounds like she is losing her mind." "It is admissible," he said. "It goes to state of mind. It proves they are trying to coerce you, and it proves they are terrified. People who are confident in their legal position do not leave voicemail manifestos." My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I stared at it. "Answer it," Elias said. "Put it on speaker. I am a witness." I tapped the green button. "Hello? Natalie?" "It's Uncle Jerry." I stiffened. Jerry was my father's younger brother. He lived in Ohio. We rarely saw him. The family narrative was that Jerry was a failure because he worked in HVAC and didn't own a company. "What do you want?" "Jerry," I asked defensively, "are you calling to tell me I am crazy too?" "No," he said. His voice was rough, tired. I am calling to tell you to burn them down. I looked at Elias. He motioned for me to keep talking. Why? I asked. Because they did it to me too. Jerry said, What? 12 years ago? Jerry said, When Mom, your Grandma Rose, got sick the first time, I was living in her guest house. Your dad told me he was handling her bills. He asked for my social security number, said he needed to list me as a caretaker for the insurance. I held my breath. 6 months later, I went to buy a truck. Jerry said, My credit was trashed. There were 3 utility accounts and a credit card opened in my name. All the bills were sent to your dad's P.O. box. He ran up $15,000 in debt in my name. Did you report him? I asked. Jerry laughed. A bitter sound. No, Mom begged me not to. She said it would kill the family. She paid off the debt, and I let it go. But I never spoke to him again. That is why you don't see me at Christmas. I gripped the edge of the desk. I heard what happened to you. Jerry said, Linda called me, trying to get me to talk sense into you. I told her to go to hell, Natalie. If you need a witness, if you need someone to stand up in court and say, this is their pattern, I will do it. I am tired of keeping their secrets. Thank you. Jerry, I whispered, you have no idea what that means. Get them, kid, he said, and hang up before they try to trace this. The call ended. I looked at Elias. He was already typing. Pattern of conduct. Elias said, prior bad acts. This destroys their emergency family debt defense. This proves they are habitual identity thieves. But the biggest crack in the case didn't come from family. It came from the data. 2 days later. Elias summoned me back to the office. He had a large monitor set up on the wall. We got the subpoena returns from the internet service provider. He said, he pulled up a map of the city. There was a red dot in the financial district. This is the IP address that accessed the digital notary logbook at 7:30 in the morning on the day of your surgery. Elias said, I looked at the location. It wasn't the hospital. It is a co-working space called The Hive. Elias said, it is located at 400 East 4th Street. I know that address. I said, that is the building where my dad rents his virtual mailbox for the LLC. It gets better, Elias said. We subpoenaed the Hive's access logs. They require a key card to enter the private booths. At 7:15 in the morning, a key card assigned to North Pine Consulting swiped into booth 4. My father. I said, your father. Elias confirmed. He sat in a booth, logged into a remote notary platform using a stolen or fake credential, and notarized his own forgery. But what about the notary? I asked. The name on the stamp. Marcus Thorne. Elias clicked a button. A photo appeared on the screen. It was a mugshot. We found Marcus Thorne. Elias said, or rather, the man whose identity was stolen to create the fake persona. The real Marcus Thorne is a 22-year-old mechanic in Oregon. He has never been a notary. He lost his wallet at a casino in Vegas 2 years ago. My parents bought a stolen identity, I said, feeling the room spin. They went to the dark web? Or they knew a guy who knew a guy? Elias said, your father is in logistics. He knows people who move things that shouldn't be moved. The point is, this wasn't just a pen stroke on a piece of paper. This was a complex, digital crime. He clicked to the next slide. And they tried to frame you. Natalie. What do you mean? Look at this email chain. He verified the sender. It was Natalie. Russell@gmail.com. 2. Brenda at premiertitle.com. Date. Day of surgery. 2 p.m. Subject. Thank you. Hi, Brenda. Just wanted to say thanks for making this so easy. Sad to see the place go. But the wire hit the account. My parents are the best for helping me with this. Talk soon. I stared at the screen. I was in the recovery room at 2 p.m. I was vomiting into a plastic bucket. They sent this from your phone, Elias said. Or they cloned your SIM card. And this, he said, playing an audio file. It was a recording of a phone call. Yes, this is Natalie Russell. I authorized the release of the funds. Yes, the account ending in 4490 is correct. That is my voice. I said, but I never said that. It is spliced. Elias said, He played it again. The cadence was wrong. The pauses were unnatural. They took clips of your voice from old voicemails or family videos. He said, "They built a Frankenstein approval tape." "Why?" I asked. "Why go to all this trouble?" "Because they knew you might fight," Elias said, "and they wanted to have a file that made you look like a liar. If you sued, they would pull this out and say, 'Look, she thanked the realtor. She authorized the wire. She is just having remorse now.' They were building a trap for you." I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. It was heavier than the grief I had felt at Oakhaven. This was distinct. It was the realization that my parents didn't just want my money. They were willing to send me to prison for perjury if it meant keeping their loot. "They hate me," I whispered. "No," Elias said gently. "They just do not see you as a person. They see you as an asset, and assets do not have rights. We need to talk to the buyer," I said. Elias nodded. "We have a mediation session scheduled for Friday. Urban Horizon is sending their representative." The mediation was held in a neutral conference center. The room was beige and airless. Across the table sat a man in a sharp blue suit. He introduced himself as Mr. Sterling, no relation to the trust officer, the acquisitions manager for Urban Horizon. He looked annoyed. "Ms. Russell," he began, smoothing his tie. "This is highly irregular. We bought your unit in good faith. We have a title policy. We have a deed. You have a forgery," Elias said, sliding the IP log across the table. "Mr. Sterling glanced at it, then pushed it back. "That is an issue between Ms. Russell and her parents. We were told that Ms. Russell was abroad, in France, I believe, recovering from a skiing accident. That is why she couldn't attend the closing." "France?" I asked. "I was in a hospital 3 miles away. That is what your father told us," Sterling said. "He said you needed the money for medical bills in Europe. He seemed credible." "And the price?" Elias asked. "You paid $25,000 under market. You waived inspection. You closed in 10 days. We are investors," Sterling said with a shrug. "We look for distressed assets. We move fast. That is our business model." "Did you verify the seller's identity?" Elias asked. "Did you video chat with her? Did you call her?" "We relied on the notary," Sterling said. "That is standard industry practice. But you received an email from her saying she was happy with the sale." Elias pressed. "Did you check the IP on that email?" Sterling shifted in his seat. "We are not forensic accountants, counselor. We buy houses." I spoke up. "You knew." I said. Sterling looked at me. His eyes were cold. "Dead things." "Excuse me?" "You knew it was dirty." I said, "You didn't care. You saw a desperate old man selling his daughter's condo for cheap. And you asked no questions because the price was right. That makes you complicit." "Ms. Russell," Sterling warned, "and when we depose your team," I continued, leaning forward, "when we pull your emails, are we going to find a message where you joke about how easy it was? Are we going to find a note from my father promising you a kickback?" Sterling stood up. "We are done here. If you want the condo back, pay us the $410,000 plus our legal fees. Otherwise, see you in court." He walked out. Elias watched him go. "He is bluffing," Elias said. "He is scared." He didn't deny the distressed asset comment. They knew you were in trouble. They capitalized on it. But the final blow came when we looked at the escrow ledger one last time. Elias had hired a forensic accountant to trace every penny. We knew about the mortgage payoff. We knew about the big wire to North Pine. But there was a small line item I had missed. Line 14. Miscellaneous service fee. $2,500. Payee. Apex Solutions. "Who is Apex Solutions?" I asked. Elias tapped his keyboard. He pulled up a website. Apex Solutions. Private Investigations and Surveillance. My blood ran cold. "They hired a PI?" I asked. Elias looked at the date on the invoice. It was dated 3 weeks before my surgery. "They didn't just guess your passwords." "Natalie," Elias said quietly, "they paid a professional to watch you. They probably had a keylogger on your laptop. Or they had someone follow you to a coffee shop and shoulder surf while you typed your banking PIN. I remembered the tax issue excuse. I remembered the "we are drowning" speech. They spent $2,500 of the stolen money to pay the man who helped them steal it. I stood up. I paced the small conference room. I wanted to scream. I wanted to go to Instagram and post every document, every recording, every lie. I wanted to tag my father's business clients. I wanted to burn his reputation to the ground. "Natalie," Elias said, reading my mind, "do not post." "Why?" I demanded. "They deserve it. Because if you post, you look like the crazy daughter they described." He said, "You give them a defamation claim. You muddy the waters." "So what do I do?" I asked. "Do I just let them get away with it?" "No," Elias said. "We use the nuclear option, but we do it legally." He drafted a demand letter. It wasn't a polite request. It was a sledgehammer. It detailed the fraud, the forgery, the IP tracing, the fake notary, the PI hiring, and the complicity of the title company and the buyer. It attached the affidavit from Uncle Jerry. It attached the hospital logs proving I was unconscious. It demanded the immediate return of the deed. It demanded full restitution. And it threatened to file a criminal referral with the district attorney and the FBI for wire fraud, identity theft, and elder abuse. We sent it to everyone: my parents, the title company, the buyer, the title insurer. Then we waited. I spent the weekend at Oakhaven. I scrubbed the floors. I pruned the overgrown roses. I tried to exercise the feeling of being watched. I taped over the webcam on my laptop. I changed my passwords again, using a random generator, and wrote them down in a notebook I locked in Grandma Rose's safe. On Monday morning, Elias called. We got a response. He said, "From who?" "From the title insurance company, Fidelity National." "What did they say?" "They want to settle." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. "They are giving the condo back?" Elias paused. "They are offering a cash settlement, $450,000. That covers the value of the condo plus some damages. And the deed? They will handle the deed. They will likely foreclose on the buyer or force a sale. But for you, it is a cash out." "That sounds good," I said. "It was more than the condo was worth." "There is a catch," Elias said. "Of course there is. They require a strict non-disclosure agreement. You cannot talk about the fraud. You cannot talk about the forgery. You cannot report the notary or your parents to the authorities. You take the money, and the story dies." I sat on the porch of the Oakhaven house. The sun was shining on the gravel driveway. "They want to buy my silence," I said. "That is how the system works. Natalie, the title company doesn't want a public scandal about how easily their controls were bypassed. The buyer doesn't want to be exposed as a predatory investor. And your parents, well, this saves them from prison. So if I take the money, my parents walk free?" "Essentially," Elias said. "They lose the money they stole, because the title company will go after them to recover the payout. But they avoid jail. They avoid the public shame." I looked at the photo of me and Grandma Rose on the desk. "If he ever tries to take what is yours, you must not let him. If I signed the NDA, I was letting him take something else. Not my house, my voice. I thought about Uncle Jerry. I thought about the next daughter my parents might try this on. I thought about the fake notary stamp sitting in a drawer somewhere, waiting to be used again. I am not signing an NDA." "Elias," I said, "Natalie, it is a lot of money. It is a guaranteed win. If we go to trial, it could take 2 years. I don't care." I said, "I have a house. I have Oakhaven. I can wait. You want to reject the settlement?" "No," I said. "I want to counter. Tell them I will take the money. But I want the NDA removed. And I want a clause that requires the title company to report the notary fraud to the Secretary of State." "They won't agree to that," Elias said. "Then tell them I am filing the criminal referral myself tomorrow morning." I said, "Tell them I have the press release drafted. Tell them I am ready to be the unstable daughter on the 6 o'clock news." Elias was silent for a moment. Then I heard him smile. "I will send the letter," he said. I hung up the phone. I looked out at the trees surrounding my fortress. My parents had tried to buy my silence with guilt. Now the system was trying to buy it with checks. They were all about to learn that the price of my silence was higher than they could afford. The settlement offer sat on the mahogany desk between Elias and me, a stack of paper that represented $450,000. It was enough to replace the condo. It was enough to pay off my student loans. It was enough to start over. But the price tag was stapled to the last page. A non-disclosure agreement. I read the clause out loud. Plaintiff agrees to keep the terms of this settlement and the underlying allegations of fraud, forgery, and professional negligence. Strictly confidential. Plaintiff agrees not to disparage the defendants, including Robert and Martha Russell, in any public forum. They want me to help them bury the body. I said, looking up at Elias. They want closure, Elias said, leaning back in his chair. They want to know that the notary fraud won't trigger an investigation that could strip the title company of its license. And your parents want to know they won't be arrested at their country club. If I sign this, I said, I am saying that what they did was a business dispute. I am saying it was just a misunderstanding about money. Elias nodded. That is usually how these things end. Natalie, you get the check. They get the silence. It is a transaction. I thought about the hospital room. I thought about the text message they faked from my phone while I was vomiting from anesthesia. I thought about Uncle Jerry, whose credit was ruined 12 years ago because he stayed silent to protect the family. If I take the silence, I said, they will do it again. Maybe not to me, but to someone. They will use that fake notary stamp again. They will leverage another relative, because they will learn that the worst consequence for theft is writing a check that insurance covers anyway. I pushed the papers back across the desk. No, Elias didn't look surprised. He looked resigned. You are rejecting the offer? I am rejecting the terms. I said, I will take the money as restitution for the stolen property, but I will not sign the NDA, and I want a clause added to the agreement stating that the title company acknowledges the failure of their verification protocols. They will never agree to that, Elias said. It opens them up to liability. Then we go to court, I said. And you can tell them that if we go to court, the first thing I'm going to do is subpoena the entire email server of the title company, and I will make sure the press is there to hear it. We didn't get a new offer. We got a court date. It was an emergency hearing for a preliminary injunction. My parents' lawyer had filed a motion to dismiss, claiming that the suit was frivolous and that I was mentally incompetent to manage my affairs. A strategy designed to freeze my access to everything, including the trust house, if it worked. The courtroom was cold and smelled of floor wax. I sat at the plaintiff's table, dressed in a charcoal suit, my crutches leaning against the railing. I didn't look at the defense table, but I could feel them. My mother was wearing a soft, pastel cardigan. She looked smaller, frailer. She was dabbing her eyes with a tissue before the judge even entered. My father sat next to her, looking stoic and pained, the very picture of a patriarch burdened by a wayward child. The judge was a woman in her 60s with sharp glasses and a demeanor that suggested she had zero patience for theatrics. Judge Harper. Counsel, Judge Harper said, peering over her glasses. I have read the briefs. This is a mess. We have allegations of forgery, elder abuse, and a counterclaim of, what is this? Benevolent intervention? My parents' lawyer stood up. He was a slick man with a voice like oiled leather. Your Honor, this is a tragedy. Mr. and Mrs. Russell are devoted parents. Their daughter, the plaintiff, underwent a serious surgery. She was heavily medicated. There were financial pressures on her property that she was unable to handle in her state. My clients acted under a valid power of attorney to save her credit. Now, in her confusion and distress, she is lashing out. He pointed at me. We are not here to fight her, Your Honor. We are here to protect her. We are asking the court to dismiss this suit and potentially appoint a temporary guardian until Ms. Russell is back on her feet. I felt the blood rise in my neck. Guardian. They wanted to take away my legal agency entirely. Judge Harper looked at Elias. Mr. Vance? Elias stood up. He didn't point. He didn't use adjectives. He picked up a piece of paper. Your Honor, the defense claims they used a valid power of attorney. However, the deed was not signed as Natalie Russell by Robert Russell. Attorney in fact, it was signed as Natalie Russell. He held up the blown-up image of the signature. This signature purports to be my client's. It was notarized by a Marcus Thorne, who swore under penalty of perjury that he witnessed Ms. Russell sign this document at St. Jude's Hospital at 7:30 in the morning on the day of her surgery. Elias picked up a second document. This is the hospital visitor log for that morning. No Marcus Thorne signed in. This is the nursing log. At 7:30, Ms. Russell was being prepped for surgery and had already been administered a sedative. And this? He picked up the third document, the one that made the air in the room change. This is a letter from the Secretary of State's office, confirming that the commission number on Mr. Thorne's stamp does not exist. It is a fake number. Judge Harper took the documents. She studied them for a long silence. The rustling of papers was the only sound in the room. My mother stopped dabbing her eyes. My father stopped looking stoic. They were watching the judge. Judge Harper looked up. Her eyes were hard. "Counsel for the defense," she said, her voice dropping an octave. "Are you telling me your clients, in their role as worried caretakers, manufactured a fake notary stamp and forged a signature?" "Your Honor," the lawyer stammered, his slickness evaporating. "My clients relied on third-party services to handle the closing." "They were not aware," the judge cut him off. "If your clients used a fake seal to record a deed, that is not a family dispute. That is a felony. And if I find that this court is being used to facilitate a cover-up of criminal fraud, I will refer this matter to the district attorney's office before lunch." She turned to me. "Ms. Russell," she said, "you appear lucid to me." "I am, Your Honor," I said. My voice was steady. I practiced it in the mirror. No tears, no shaking, just facts. The motion to dismiss is denied. Judge Harper ruled, slamming her gavel, and the motion for a guardian is denied with prejudice. We will proceed to discovery. And counsel? I suggest you advise your clients that the benevolent parent defense does not cover forgery. The hearing ended. I walked out of the courtroom feeling lightheaded. We had won the skirmish, but the war wasn't over. I was waiting for the elevator when I heard the clicking of heels behind me. Natalie. I turned. My mother was standing there. The lawyer and my father were arguing in the distance, distracted. She had slipped away. She didn't look frail anymore. Her eyes were bright with a mix of panic and fury. "How could you?" she whispered. "In front of a judge? You made your father look like a crook." "He is a crook. Mom," I said, "we did this for you," she hissed. Stepping closer, she reached out to grab my arm, but I moved my crutch, creating a barrier between us. "Do not touch me," I said. "You are ruining us," she said, her voice trembling. "Do you know what happens if the DA gets involved? Your father loses his license. The business collapses. We lose the house. Is that what you want? You want to see us on the street?" I looked at her. I looked for the mother who used to make me toast when I was sick. I looked for the woman who had packed my lunchboxes. She wasn't there. There was only a woman who was terrified of consequences. "You sold my house while I was asleep," I said. "You hired a private investigator to steal my passwords. You didn't do it for me. You did it to pay your gambling debts or whatever hole Dad dug this time." She switched tactics instantly. The anger vanished, replaced by a desperate, cloying pleading. "Natalie, baby, please, we can fix this. We can give you money. Just tell the lawyer to stop. Tell the judge you made a mistake. Please, I am your mother. I carried you. Doesn't that mean anything? It means you should have protected me," I said. Her face twisted. The mask fell off completely. "No one will believe you in the end." She spat. "You are just a single, lonely girl with no husband and no kids. You need us. You are nothing without this family. You will rot in that house alone." I felt a chill, but it wasn't fear. It was the cold clarity of indifference. I would rather be alone than be prey. I said, The elevator doors opened. I stepped in. She tried to follow, but Elias stepped in between us. his briefcase acting as a shield. "Step back." "Mrs. Russell?" Elias said calmly. The doors closed on her face, red, contorted, and silent. Back at the office, Elias had one more card to play. "We got the internal emails from the title company," he said. "They came in during the hearing." He pulled up a printed email on his desk. From Senior Underwriter to Closing Agent. Subject, Russell Closing. File, 89002214. "I am flagging this file. The seller is not present. The father is pushing hard for a remote close. Hospital records suggest the seller may be incapacitated. This is high risk. Do we have a frantic approval?" From Closing Agent to Senior Underwriter. "The father is a longtime associate of the referral partner. He says it is an emergency. Just get it done. We can clean up the paperwork later." I stared at the paper. They knew. I said, "They knew you were incapacitated." Elias said, "And they pushed the button anyway because they wanted the commission. This removes their good faith defense entirely. It is gross negligence. So we have them." I said, "We have them cold." Elias said, "They will pay the full amount. They will likely pay punitive damages, and they will drop the NDA requirement because they are terrified that if we go to trial with this email, the jury will award you millions." I took the email. I folded it. "But that is just money." I said, "What do you want to do?" "Natalie, I want to make sure the record reflects the truth." I said, "I didn't just wait for the check." That afternoon, I sat at the desk in the Oak Haven house, my house, and I filled out a form on the Secretary of State's website. Complaint form. Notary, misconduct, and fraud. I attached the image of the fake stamp. I attached the hospital logs. I attached the IP address evidence. Then I went to the state licensing board for general contractors and logistics brokers. I filed a complaint against my father's business entity for fraudulent practices and identity theft. I hit submit. It was a quiet click. It didn't sound like a gunshot, but I knew it was the end. Once those investigations started, they would ripple outward. The state would look at the notary stamp. They would trace it to the co-working space. They would trace it to my father. They would look at his business accounts. They would find the Nevada Shell Company. It wouldn't be a private family tragedy anymore. It would be a public reckoning. I wasn't doing it for revenge. I told myself that. I was doing it because Grandma Rose had left me a letter telling me to protect myself. And the only way to protect myself from people who refuse to stop is to make it impossible for them to continue. The next week was a blur of logistics. I officially moved into Oak Haven. I didn't hire movers. Elena and I rented a van. We packed the few things I had at her apartment. I went to the post office and set up a new P.O. box in Willow Creek. I changed my phone number. I went to the bank and closed every account that had ever been touched by my parents. I opened new accounts at a credit union 3 towns over. I called the HR department at my work. I told them I had a stalker. I provided my father's photo and name. They put him on the do not admit list for the building. I was building a wall, brick by brick. The settlement check arrived 2 weeks later. $465,000. No NDA. The title company had folded. They paid to make the lawsuit go away, knowing the regulatory investigation was already triggered by my complaints. They cut their losses. I deposited the check. I paid off the small student loan I had left. I put the rest in a high-yield savings account that no one knew about except me and the ghost of Grandma Rose. Then, the final summons came, not from a court, from my father. He sent a message through Elias. He wanted to meet, one last time, to sign the final release of claims regarding the condo title. He said he had things of mine, personal things, photo albums, my birth certificate. Elias advised against it. Let him mail them. Elias said, "No." I said, "I need to finish this." We met at Elias's office. Neutral ground. My parents arrived together. They looked aged. The stress of the last month, the looming investigations, the financial hit, the loss of control, had carved lines into their faces. My mother carried a small box. We sat at the long table. I didn't stand up. "Here are your papers," my father said. sliding the box across the table. His voice was flat, dead. I opened the box. My birth certificate, my passport, a few photos from my college graduation. "Is this everything?" I asked. "Everything." My mother said. She looked at me, her eyes wet. "We are losing everything. Natalie, the state investigators were at your father's office yesterday. They seized computers. I didn't flinch. I told you I filed a report. You destroyed your family," my father said, "over a condo." I looked at him, even now, at the very end. He couldn't see it. He couldn't see that it wasn't about the drywall or the equity. "I didn't destroy the family," I said. "I just turned on the lights." My mother started to cry. Soft, broken sobs. "Natalie, we love you. We are your parents. Where will you go? Who will take care of you? You cannot cut us out. We are connected by blood." I stood up. I picked up the box of my identity, the identity they had tried to steal, mimic, and sell. I looked at them. I saw the fear, the manipulation, the endless, bottomless need that they called love. I leaned forward, my hands on the table, and I delivered the only sentence that mattered, the boundary that would stand for the rest of my life. I looked my father in the eye. "You don't have a daughter anymore." The silence that followed was absolute. It sucked the air out of the room. My father's mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. My mother stopped crying and stared, struck dumb by the finality of it. I turned around. I walked to the door. "Natalie!" my mother screamed, the sound tearing from her throat. I didn't stop. I didn't look back. I walked out of the office, down the hall, and into the elevator. I drove back to Willow Creek. The sun was setting as I turned onto Oakhaven Lane. The gravel crunched under my tires. I parked the car. I walked up the steps to the porch. I unlocked the door with the heavy brass key. I went into the study. I put the box of my documents on the desk next to the photo of Grandma Rose. The house was quiet. It was a big, empty silence. For a moment, the grief hit me. I had no parents. I had no safety net. I was truly, completely alone in the world. But then I looked at the window. The lock was solid. The glass was unbroken. I wasn't alone. I was free. I sat in the chair, took a deep breath of the lavender-scented air, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I had dropped it myself, and I was still standing. Thank you so much for listening to My Parents Sold My Condo While I Was in Surgery. This was a story about betrayal, but more importantly, about the strength it takes to walk away from the people who are supposed to protect you. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Drop your city or country in the comments below. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you enjoyed this story and want more tales of justice, revenge, and reclaiming power, please make sure to subscribe to the Revenge Stories channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. And tell me in the comments, do you think Natalie made the right choice by refusing the NDA and reporting her parents? Or is family always worth saving? I want to hear your thoughts. Until next time, stay safe and trust your instincts.